Rock Candy Mountain, the land is fair and bright.
Hi, my name is Daniel Kim. I'm from Apple Valley, California, and I've been interested in historical reenactments ever since I was about 10 years old.
My name is Alexander Nguyen. I'm from San Diego, California, and I've been reenacting for probably about 8+ years.
My name is Gary Dusky. I was born in San Diego, California, September 18, 1941. I served in the military in the Navy, aboard one ship only, for 4 years.
For many people, historical reenactments can be different things, but initially, historical reenactments are just recreations of past events, mainly wartime events, and they're done to highlight the importance of a specific event, or maybe the issues that came with what happened at the time, so that the people who are a part of it and the people who are watching it may learn something from the past.
Historical reenacting is basically, it's a form of it's basically an immersive history lesson. You get educated on some niche era or area of history, and you really get into it to the point where you dress up, and that's just about what it is.
First off, I believe that it teaches the kids today what actually happened years ago to make this country what it is today. I don't think that without that, the teachers don't teach all of the history. They teach what they want to teach. It's good. We have to have reenactments for the kids to go see.
I find historical reenactments fun because ever since I was a child, I would always watch a lot of action and war movies. And I always thought, wow, like, as violent and terrifying as these are, it was still very exciting for me.
I guess we could start the story when I was about 6 years old. I used to hear war stories from Vietnam, from my uncles, from my grandpa, my grandma.
But then when I started actually going out to events and trying it out, it became something I did because I really appreciated the history and I kind of wanted to be a part of it.
My grandma used to be a covert spy for the Viet Minh. I didn't find that out until just about a year ago. She didn't tell me any of this stuff. And she said she was a spy, and all these crazy stories, and I grew up around the environment. So I suppose since I was raised in it, I felt only natural that I picked up an interest in it.
Some common misconceptions with reenactments is that it's restricted to a lot of older men, especially white older men.
I know when I say reenactment, everyone thinks like, oh, you go out and put on Civil War uniforms and you shoot muskets and you line up and pretend to topple over.
There's actually a lot of diversity within these groups because many people who enjoy the history also enjoy representing their culture or their race through it.
From my experience, the average age on people who do this they're probably in their 40s, 30s. A couple of young guys in their 20s, and that's pretty late 20s at that. Not a lot of young guys. It's missing that early 20s age group.
To think reenacting is only restricted to white males is incorrect, to say the least, because with that kind of mindset, it makes it difficult for reenactors like us to actually be in the light, I suppose.
I just think history geek. It's a geek who really likes history and apparently likes throwing on uniforms for fun and hanging out in their backyards or their rooms with other geeks who like to, do the same thing.
Being Asian in this hobby it's almost alienating some days because it really is mostly white males, as much as I like to say that there are large bits of diversity within these groups. And It's fairly obvious that there are sometimes stigmas because me personally, I wanted to be part of different subgroups or divisions, and I was not allowed because in order for them to maintain historical accuracy, they wouldn't allow Asians into their group because there were no Asians at the time.
I've never had to personally deal with, someone in the hobby like calling me out for being Asian or anything like that. But I do feel the pressure that, for example, when I used to do German reenacting, how do I rationalize that?
For a reenactor, an impression is very important because it's not just wearing your uniform and acting like you're there at the time, it's genuinely creating a character for yourself. Such as one would create a name, where you're from, hobbies, a fake family, and reasons as to why you're fighting the war.
So the work that goes into impression is one, it takes a ton of research. You have to look at, aside from like general getup, like the uniform, the gear, the boots.
It increases the realism almost for everyone there. And it also helps you appreciate the history a bit more by almost making yourself live in that era, by giving yourself a new life almost.
You could attain all of that gear, put it on, but you don't know how to wear it or like what actually looks accurate. So by doing your research, that means reading books, that means reading firsthand accounts, that means watching documentaries, that means watching interviews, that means looking at field photographs. And those are important, field photographs. So you know how to wear your gear, how your gear should look.
An average reenactment typically consists of, you would wake up in barracks or some tent in a very uncomfortable cot. You'd be eating MREs, which are military rations, for breakfast, and you wouldn't be allowed to use any of your outside technology, phones, iPods, headphones, things like that. That would not be allowed.
You probably wake up at what, 500 hours? Get up, brush your teeth, put on your dungarees or whatever your kit is for that day.
Every time you speak, everything you talk about, say, anything like that, has to be related to the time era, and you have to be in character 100%.
If you're at, like, say, a milsim operation, you get up, you put on whatever protective gear that you need for the day, i.e. earplugs or glasses, goggles, and get some chow in, and I guess for the rest of the day, you're at war. It's 1968 or it's 1942, and there's no diverging out of that. You're immersed, you're completely in it.
Most of the time, there is a large event that happens, maybe in the middle of the day or at night, but most of the time, you're pretending to live there. So you'd be doing what the soldiers would be doing in their own downtime. You'd be shaving, you'd be digging foxholes, you'd be manning the machine gun posts, cleaning your rifles, having a beer with your friends, but in character.
I think it's very respectable to see the reenactments. I believe in them. I see them when I can. I don't get to see all of them, of course, but any ones that I have a chance to go see, I go see.
Like I said, typically the most eventful part of the event, if that makes sense, is the firefights or the stage simulations, which would typically include explosions, blank rounds, enemy combatants rushing your camp or things like that.
And if it's a public display, then you get to lay out all your goodies on a table and have everyone come up and they're like touching it. That's cool and all. That's great. You're educating the public.
And ever since the end of the Korean War, South Korea had a mandatory draft for all males, which means that after the age of 18 and up to the age of, I think, 30 to 35, you are forced to serve 2 years in the Korean military, just so you have the training, just in case there is a North Korean invasion. For me, since I didn't really live in Korea for too long, I was born there, but I only spent about maybe 2 years of my young life there.
I think it should be mandatory for men and women. I don't think it's necessary that every man or woman has to go to war, but I believe that when you come out of school, a lot of kids don't have a direction.
Recently, I became a US citizen, so it's no longer required of me. But I think this might be still something that I'm interested of doing in the future because, call it patriotism if you like, but I suppose I feel like it really is my solemn duty as a Korean.
Well, outside of this, I'm a student at UC Riverside. I'm also a geologist in training, study rocks and things. I'm cool. I'm a cool guy. I'm a swell guy. Get to know me. I like history too.
As someone who's pursuing acting in college right now, I feel like historical reenactments also help me a lot because it's almost a form of massive method acting, along with other people who are doing the same thing with you.
I sometimes go out and I feel like I have this desire to emulate, culture from the 40s, even though that might not be the best thing to do. I mean, racism, oppression, fascism, but to really live in the era you're portraying is such a cool feeling. I showered for during summer about 2 years ago with a bucket, bar of soap, and a towel. And I showered for that for a whole summer. And I shaved with a little mirror and a safety razor, and I'd be shaving away, and then I'd nick myself, and I'd be like, well, I should have done this in the bathroom mirror. But immersiveness.
So far, from my favorite uniform would probably be the one I'm wearing right now. This is an original Phase 1 officer's dress uniform that will be worn at parties, galas, or at formal events, anything really.
I started off with doing German World War II reenacting because I was in high school and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be edgy and I'm gonna have this niche impression. People are like, Alex, what are you doing? But after a while, that stopped being fun. There was no camaraderie in that.
I like it. I think everybody should see them.
Go to an event. Watch these things happen. Watch how these people love what they do.
It's a hobby. It's something I do. I like to spend my pastime doing. It certainly doesn't define who I am, but it is a facet of my life that I really do enjoy, and I hope people around me enjoy as much as I do, because I think history is important. I think keeping history alive and keeping history pertinent is very important in people's lives.
We strive to teach people of what happened, because of course those who don't know or appreciate history are bound to repeat it.
Life outside of this. What is life outside of this? This is life. We gotta run. We gotta go. We're just playing soldier.
We are in the end. Yeah, it's like we talk about historical accuracy, things like that, teaching the public, but in the end we just like holding guns and dressing up.
Yeah.
It's like Halloween every
We're
fucking
just
day.
playing soldier.